Welcome to Krista's Spiritual Talks. Today we have Leslie Zemenek. She is a hand reader, past life astrologer, and life purpose guide. For 3 decades, she's decoded the life purpose story in people's fingerprints and hands, helping them break through their blocks and write their happy endings. Um, I had the privilege of meeting Leslie, I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I think.
She did a hand reading, and I think for most people are pretty familiar with hand reading, but you do it a little different. Can you explain how you do it?
Well, one of the things I read are people's fingerprints. So I'm not sure if people, when they think of hand reading, they think of the old idea of palmistry where somebody looks at your lifeline and your then the marriage line and tells you if you're going to have money and kids and all that. That's not what I do. I don't do any predictive work.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I look at people's fingerprints first, which are the only part of you that doesn't change. I mean, we know it doesn't change from watching all those good TV shows and movies where they use it for ID. And we say that well, we do, the science knows that their fingerprints are complete 16 weeks after conception.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the first part of our body that's complete in the womb. And we say in hand reader world that that's when your soul reveals your life purpose, why you came, what your mission is for your lifetime, and codes it into your fingerprints. And it's pretty darn cool.
So I know when you were reading my hand, you were talking about there's a certain amount of different types, right?
There
Of
are four,
fingerprints. Yeah.
yeah, there's four basic categories of fingerprints, but every fingerprint is unique.
Uh-huh. Is
So
there,
when I'm looking, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just thinking, is there certain personalities or traits that tend to go with the certain fingerprints or?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's true, there is.
Yeah.
So the I talk about there being four pathways and the four fingerprint types. So for instance, there's a fingerprint called the tented arch, which looks like it's just kind of a little hillside, but it's got a tent pole up the middle. And that's associated with people who are very much in their heads.
Oh, okay.
It's we consider it the fingerprint of wisdom. So that's an example of, yes, there are types that go with each of those fingerprint variations,
And I was reading in your
categories.
website, the lines in the hands are mirrors of the wiring in the brain, and those are the ones that change.
Yes,
Okay.
because our brains are plastic
Hmm.
and we can keep changing our beliefs, our habits, or we can always keep learning. So every time you make new connections in your brain, it shows up here. It's pretty fascinating stuff, actually. So besides studying all the metaphysical parts of hand reading, I'm always reading stuff about hands and brains.
Right. So the more that you're rewiring, it's going to show up in your hand then.
Yeah, when I work with people, not at events, but when I work with them one on one from my office, I have prints made of their hands, or we make prints, or I send them a packet and they make a print and send them to me. And they're dated. We put a date on them because people come back
Mm-hmm.
and we ink them again and we compare, and they do change and they can change significantly.
That's kind of fascinating that it shows
Hmm.
up there. I just never had that concept before. Um, so you're helping people with false beliefs or helping them more into their potential, right? For happiness or
Yeah, my whole thing is about authenticity. When you think about the fact that everybody's fingerprints are unique,
hmm.
I mean, what does that say about us? It means we're unique.
Right.
And we live in a world that likes to fit us into little boxes. And I like to help people get out of those little boxes. I mean, we spend a lot of time doing things that other people tell us we should do, especially early in life. And
Mhm.
then at some point, people go, God, that just isn't working, or I'm not happy. or there's got to be something else.
So,
And those are the people I work with.
mhm. So with your journey, have you always done this, or did you have a life that really didn't fit in and then you started doing this?
Oh, I've had a bunch of different careers before I started doing this full time.
Hmm. How was that journey transitioning into what you're doing now?
Um, it was kind of interesting. I mean, I've always been in creative industries. So, I mean, it's not like I was doing something that was kind of miserable, but I was in tech in the early, sorry, late 90s and early aughts.
Hmm.
The early days of the internet when most people didn't know the internet existed. And there was that tech bubble
Hmm.
around 2000, 2002, where all of these companies, they were all considered to be worth a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, the bubble burst and everybody was out of a job. And that was me too. I was out of a job and
Right.
there weren't jobs to be had. Um, but I had been doing this part time on the side. And I thought, well, what better time to hang out my shingle full time than now?
So I've never met a hand reader that does it like you do. So how did you figure it out, or how did you learn?
I actually had a teacher. His name is Richard Unger, and he has a school called the International Institute of Hand Analysis,
Hmm.
which is in Marin County, California. And it truly is international. He does have some students I know of in Europe. I'm not sure where else.
Hmm.
Um, but I met him at a metaphysical fair in the early 90s.
Hmm.
And I had always been reading, I had been doing tarot and astrology and different things, but I had always wanted to learn to read hands. And when I saw his table at this fair, I went, there's a school for this? I couldn't believe it. And I talked to him and he said, you can't learn it from a book. It's really hard to learn from a book.
Hmm.
And I've had other people who come up to me and tell me they've tried to learn it from a book and they can't really. From multiple books. I had shelves of books. So I started to study with him and went through his training,
Sounds,
and it was amazing.
yeah. How long did it take to really kind of
Um,
get a grasp of it?
well, the initial training was called an intensive, and it was 3-day weekend of just complete immersion,
Mm-hmm.
after which I had to go out and read 100 hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can learn, I mean, just the same as, you learning being difficult to learn from a book. It's not easy even when you have an instructor because everybody's hands are radically different.
Right.
And so you have to look at a lot of hands to kind of get a sense of what you're looking at. And on top of that, then there were advanced studies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to be honest, I'm continuing to study. I'm always studying. I'm always seeing something I never saw before. Always.
That's what I was just thinking, like, how has it changed over the years? So you're just seeing more in there.
Or I'll just see something that like I just would go, well, that's not in a book anywhere. I
Right.
have to figure out I have to take what I know about hands, and it's not just lines. That's the thing that people don't get is that it's more than just lines. It's the hand shape, it's the hand thickness from
Mm-hmm.
front to back. It's how do your fingers curl?
Mm-hmm.
Does your thumb open wide or is it kind of hard? Are your fingers stiff or are they flexible? There's so many factors. Um, does your skin turn funny colors when I press on it?
Mm-hmm.
I even read scars.
Okay. Interesting. So
I just don't think there's anything on your hand that isn't relevant.
right, that doesn't mean something.
Hmm.
And then what's the past life astrology that you do?
So the fingerprints talk about three things. One is with what you brought with you from previous lifetimes, so your greatest skill. You're
Mhm.
not having to learn it this lifetime. What you're learning this lifetime to add on to it, and then which of those four fingerprint categories, I call them paths you walk.
Mhm.
Um, but when I look at people's hands and I start doing the life purpose work with them, it um, that part about the skill and a part about like why do you have this particular thing you came to learn? How did you like go lifetime after lifetime and not figure this part out? I wanted to go deeper.
Mhm.
And there were a few books that have been published, not recently, but a long time ago. They're classics in the handreading world
Mhm.
that try to overlay astrology and hands. And they never seem to work. So I was doing normal astrology readings, which is kind of like personality assessment kind of things, plus like transits to see what's being activated. And there's a lot of really good astrologers out there. So I decided really wanted to figure out how the stuff in the chart mirrored what I was seeing in the hands.
Mm.
So I started doing a lot of research and came up with a set of criteria and then matched them to things in the hand and then did a whole bunch of charts and hands to make sure it was consistent.
Mhm.
So I know there are other astrology schools of astrology that look at past lives, but I have my own because I needed it to not contradict what I'm seeing in people's hands.
Right, right. So a lot of research.
Otherwise, one of them's not correct.
Right, right.
So
Well,
I came up with this system and I tested it and tested it and tested it and tested it. So when I look at hands, the fingerprints talk about that, and then the rest of the hand is more about the present. And what I like about having then the option to do the past life astrology is if someone wants to go deeper into how did I get here? What do I need to do to work on this? What are the karmic pieces that are at work here? That's where I go to the astrology.
well, I really resonated with something you put on your website. You talked about hiding your light to make others comfortable no longer works for you. You're
Mm-hmm.
not settling for less than you deserve in life and in love. And you're tired of saying yes to others, and no to yourself. And I think, especially the first one, there's a big push for people to become authentically who they are. And there is usually a lot of false belief systems that keeps that from happening. So when somebody comes to you, I'm sure it's varied, or is it a general type of person coming in? Do you have any patterns there, or is it all over the board?
Um, there's some patterns. I would say that most of the people come to me, they're generally 35 to 40, all the way up to their 80s. I actually have had some people I worked with in their 80s. But generally, I find that people start to do the questioning after age 35.
Hmm.
Up until that point, they're just still figuring other stuff out. So, not so many of my clients tend to be in their 20s.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are actual astrological transits that happen that push people into that individuation,
Right.
um, in that search for meaning.
Exactly.
So though that's one thing. Um, I think most of the people I work with really have been trying to please others. I wouldn't say they're all been people pleasers, but there's a significant number
Hmm.
of people who have been trying to make other people happy.
Right.
Um, or have, put parts of themselves in a little box and that hasn't seen the light of day in a long, long, long time. For
Right.
the longest time, I would have people sit down with me, and within minutes of reading their fingerprints, they would cry
Hmm.
because they felt seen.
Hmm. I think that's a big one. A lot of people don't feel seen. So,
Yeah.
well,
So they felt seen.
I think it's fascinating and it's wonderful. And if people at an earlier age could know more of these things, life's a lot easier, right?
Hmm.
Um, just in your purpose, or it just validates some of the internal feelings that we don't share a lot of times with people. Anything I haven't brought up that you'd like to talk about that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, yes, I'm very, very um adamant about. I have a couple of speeches I give I'm pretty adamant about
Uh-huh.
that have to do with authenticity and becoming who you are. Um, One is that we live in this culture that shames us for what they call being selfish, right?
Mhm.
And especially in the metaphysical community, I think there's this emphasis on doing for others and like not like almost like becoming selfless, but like, I mean, really like no self.
Right.
There's an idea that it's more spiritual or something to put your own needs aside. And when I actually give a talk um, on reincarnation and your soul mission, and there, in order to really, really make a difference in the world, if that's your goal, if that's what you feel strongly about, there has to be working on yourself.
Mhm.
There has to be an emphasis on working on who you are before you can actually make a true difference in the world. Your purpose comes through after you recognize what your skills and talents are and get to know yourself, and then the soul mission gets revealed. Um, there's whatever it's like the as above, so below, right? Whatever, when you're working on yourself, you're working on the world.
Mhm.
Um, so if you don't work on yourself, you can't really have the full strength, courage, and specifically the specific talents that were brought in that you chose,
Mhm.
your soul chose for you to be using in this world. If you are in denial of self, those are not going to be activated in a way in which it really helps you make a difference for others. So I like to say you need to have a certain amount of selfishness, but I like to call it self with a dash between the F and the I, self dash ish.
I like it. Yeah.
So you have to fill yourself up. And also, like with the chakras, if any of your chakras are out, everything is, when you have, if you're a conduit, right? When your conduit is flowing, you have abundant energy to share.
Hmm.
But if at any time you have a kink in the conduit, right, or a leak, you can't truly make that difference. It's something will be out of whack and you will be draining your own reserves.
Hmm.
So the way you fill them is by giving yourself joy, giving yourself love, giving yourself self-acceptance. And so to me, this whole thing about authenticity isn't just because it's a fad or um, there's a really big energetic reason
Hmm.
why you need to. I'd say it comes in three parts. A is know yourself deeply. The second part is accept yourself without judgment. And then the third part is love yourself unconditionally. And when you get to those pieces, you're free. There's so much freedom, and you can be creative, you can be playful, and you can give so much more and make so much more of a difference. So that's kind of the message I like to bring to the table.
And I think it's a wonderful one. So,
Thank you.
if somebody wanted to learn more about you or a booking, would they go to your website then?
Yes. Yes, they would go to my website.
So Leslie and then Zemenek.com.
Right. And that's Leslie, Lie, not Ley.
Thank you. Which is really good. I think these were really right on, and I resonate a lot with what you're doing and really applaud you. I think it's really wonderful. I felt validated just for the short time that we met. And you're right on. So I'd highly recommend anybody who's interested. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to you later. Bye bye.